Hi friends, this is the story on how they found out I had leukemia when I was pregnant.
Ladies and gentlemen.
If you are an anxious mom to be watching this, let me reassure you that these two events in my life just happened to happen at the same time. It was not caused by my pregnancy. It's a coincidence. Now, there were two tests that were main giveaways that something was about to happen with my body. I might not have been full-blown leukemic at this point, but it was an obvious sign that there was something that was about to happen. The first one being a CBC. Everyone gets a CBC when they're pregnant. This measures things like your hemoglobin, which is the blood cell that carries oxygen, your platelets, which is the blood cell that helps your blood clot, and then your white blood cells, which are basically your immune system. This is how you fight off infections. So when my CBC was done, my labs were drawn, it came back abnormal. It wasn't at that level where a blood transfusion or a platelet transfusion was needed, but it definitely was not baseline. Now, blood tests when you are pregnant will not be baseline because obviously your blood is going to the placenta. Things are changing, okay? It's going to be different. But my numbers were even lower than this. Like I said, still not at a point where they needed to intervene, but still a clear sign that something was not right. And the only thing my doctor told me was take an iron pill. Should they have done a follow-up CBC? Obviously, yes. Now we know this in the future, but that's not how it worked out. The second test that showed that something was about to happen was the Natera test. We did this because we wanted to know the gender of our baby as soon as we could know, and that was by doing this blood test. It also shows if there are any genetic concerns, but we weren't really too concerned with that. We just wanted to know the gender. But our test came back. I keep saying our. It was just a reflection of me and what was happening in my body, not my husband's. So the test came back inconclusive because of this gene abnormality that showed up that was consistent with leukemia. So they couldn't even read the gender of the baby because my genes were so messed up. So they said, go see a genetic counselor. They flagged it. They said, go get checked out. So I did. I went to this genetic counselor. She said sometimes this is common because you are growing a new human being in your body. And more likely than not, when these little gene things pop up, it's just something that has been carried down in the family. It doesn't really mean anything. Nothing has been activated. There are no symptoms. There are no symptoms of leukemia. Therefore, I'm fine. She said if you want to do further testing, I could if I'm worried about these gene things, but she said more oftentimes than not, this isn't an issue. I even had some friends reach out to me. By the way, this is not their fault at all. I am not blaming them. I had a lot of friends reach out to me and say, hey, my Natera test was flagged too. I went to the genetic counselor. We did more tests and I was fine. Baby was fine. The pregnancy was healthy. It's okay. Breathe. You'll be okay. Just to give you an example that, these things pop up and more often than not are nothing. I kind of feel like the doctors at this point were more focused on keeping me calm and not anxious about what was going on with my body, when in reality, we need to be digging deeper into these tests and doing follow-ups on that CBC that was abnormal. Fast forward to maybe about 25 weeks, somewhere in between 25 and 28. We went on our baby moon, and this entire trip I was not feeling well. I was unable to keep up with my husband when we were going to different museums and different sightseeing places. I definitely wasn't myself. I was sleeping in. I was so tired. And like I said, I literally couldn't walk. Every couple steps, I feel like I was sitting down. My legs and my feet felt swollen. And I know this is a completely normal pregnancy symptom, but something felt just beyond wrong. I'm like, there is no way moms have more than one baby. If this was normal in pregnancy, you get what I'm saying? I felt like something was wrong. So we come home, and I'm really not feeling well. It's almost Christmas time, and I keep getting these horrible, horrible cramps in my hip. So I go into my OB, I report all of these things, and they're like, well, that's kind of common. Baby might just be sitting on a nerve. Baby is moving around. Yada, yada, yada. This is normal. But I knew it wasn't, because I'd be laying in bed and these cramps would come on only in my one hip. And I would be screaming. When I tell you it was a level 11 pain, I was screaming. I'm like, I have to go to the hospital. Something is wrong. I didn't. These cramps would pass over and I would be fine. But it would make me so anxious. It only happened when I was laying down. It would make me so anxious to ever go to sleep and lay down for the night, because I would get these horrible, horrible pains in my hip. It felt like someone had ripped my leg out of its socket. Fast forward another week, I start getting this pesky fever that won't go away. Now, I have had plenty bouts of COVID, the flu, colds, strep throat in my entire life. And typically a fever for me is about 99 degrees. I don't really spike fevers. So for me to get like a 101.4 fever and for it to just span over a few days and not go away, well, it would go away with Tylenol, but come right back. I'm like, this isn't me. Called my OB. She said, well, this is a little bit too long. Go into the ER because they need to make sure that the baby's heart rate is okay, because fevers can affect the baby's heart rate. That's all I needed to hear. So I started packing my bag. I was going to take a shower because there's no way I'm going to sit in the hospital and not be freshly showered. And after I got out of the shower, I had basically collapsed. I had completely lost strength. And I do have POTS, but I knew this wasn't POTS because it wasn't necessarily a dizziness thing. It was more just weakness. I could no longer stand. Here is where we find out what is really going on. I get to the hospital. They check me out. They do a flu test. They're like, yeah, you got the flu. Here's some Tamiflu. You're in the ER. We got to do our routine labs. Now, they could not find a vein for the life of them. And this was probably the worst experience I've had in my entire life. But anyway, they finally found a vein, did labs. Guess what? I had to find that vein again and redo them because the labs came back abnormal. They're like, well, there could have been hemolysis or something with the tube, because there is no way that you are up and walking and talking with us if your numbers are this low. They redid the test. It came back lower. They're like, you're not going anywhere. And then my least favorite term, which I quote ironically all the time, someone looked at me and said, honey, you're very, very sick. I'm an adult. Once again, they're trying to keep me calm. They're like, it's most likely pregnancy-induced pancytopenia. I know I'm not pronouncing that right. Basically a condition that just because you're pregnant, your numbers are dropping. But they wanted to rule out leukemia. And as soon as they said they had to rule out leukemia, I'm like, okay, we kind of knew this was coming. I was completely calm. I kind of already mentally prepared myself at this point, as calm as I could be. A pregnant mom finding out she has cancer. So I'm like, okay, do the biopsy. And kind of like waited to the last minute to be like, yeah, can I get something for the anxiety? They gave me Ativan, found out I was allergic to Ativan. Wheeled me down to get the biopsy done. I'm in the elevator, and that's when the hematologist oncologist in that hospital breaks the news to us. Now, I do not agree in any way, shape, or form in how this doctor dropped the news to us, because what he had said in the elevator is, yes, your blood test came back that you have leukemia. This biopsy is going to show what type of leukemia, and we're going to go from there. Just literally dropped the news in the elevator before my first ever big procedure. It's a biopsy. It was a big procedure to me. They were partially knocking me out for this, or putting me in twilight for it. It was big to me. And then dips, and not freaking out necessarily because I am very sedated at this point, but I still am struggling. They're drilling into my hip and they discover that my bone marrow is no longer liquid. It is completely dried up. And for me to feel that while being in twilight was extremely horrible. To this day, I still kind of have issues with that. So for all my follow-up biopsies, I have to be knocked out completely because of this doctor and how he dropped the news to us. That's neither here nor there because the oncology team and the high-risk delivery team at that hospital is amazing. Obviously, his poor bedside manner is not a reflection on the hospital and the amazing people there besides the ER. But that's a story for another time. Anyway, I'm getting that procedure done. I am done with it. I get wheeled out. I'm sleepy. At this point, I think my dad and definitely my father-in-law came to visit us because my husband obviously had to call for support, and that's very common to do. You need your family surrounding you. You need a good support system. And that was pretty much the hardest phone call that I ever, wow, I'm gonna cry. The hardest phone call we ever had to make to my mom. The emotions are hitting me again. I tell this story all the time in support groups to other cancer fighters, yada, yada, yada. I'm like the police officer in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, like, this doctor hurt my fifis to say the least. Anyway, and then this doctor once again came into the room, and then his next answers to my questions were always followed with like a no or yes, or I'm like, Anyway, you just told me like the worst news I could hear in my entire life, and you want to have this attitude. Anyway, but the smartest thing he said came next was, we are not equipped to take care of you here. We are going to transfer you to an oncologist who is. And that oncologist is the oncologist that I have to this day. I love her so much. She is great. She's like the world's biggest girl's girl, and best decision that man had made. I, like I said, met this oncologist. She shared with me the plan. It had to be adjusted because I was pregnant to protect my baby. And then we went from there discussing my course of treatment until I'm induced, what induction is going to look like for me, and the plan after that. And here I am today to tell the story. Obviously, I'm still in treatment. I'm in the maintenance phase. And then I get to ring the bell that my infusion center doesn't have. So hopefully we get a bell by then. I have connected with, I think, about 4 or 5 other moms in the AYA age range, which is the adolescent young adult age range, which I fall under, who specifically had B-cell ALL while they were pregnant too. So it is a very small community of us. If you are watching this and you're like, I have B-cell ALL and I'm pregnant, let us know in the comments. Welcome to the club. Yeah, let us know. Or if you had it past tense, let me know in the comments, I guess. If you want to, you don't have to. I don't care, don't break HIPAA. So that is my very long story. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I'm an open book. I want to spread awareness on this. Thanks for joining me.